everyone, welcome to another video. This video we're going to be talking about anticipated releases for the next 3 months, so April through June. This is the second video I've done. If you missed the first one for the beginning of the year, I'll go ahead and link that at the end if you want to see it. And we have quite a few books to talk about, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first one is a thriller by Mary Kubica, and it's called She's Not Sorry. And this one is about a single mother who's also a nurse. And one day a patient comes in of a woman who seemingly jumped off a bridge onto some train tracks, and so she has a bad brain injury. And so she's trying to help her, but then as she's trying to heal her, she kind of discovers that maybe she was pushed instead of jumped. And so she kind of gets embroiled in this lady's life and in her family and different things. So I've only read one book by this author. I read Just the Nicest Couple last year and I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to this one. I love the purple on the cover. Oh, and this one's coming out April 2nd. Sorry. So also coming out April 2nd, we have a horror book by Adam Nevill called All the Fiends of Hell. And I don't know much about this one other than it's like a post-apocalyptic book about aliens. So aliens basically coming down to our planet and trying to destroy everybody. So it should be a fun time. And next, we also have coming out April 2nd. This is a YA thriller. This one's called The Reappearance of Rachel Price, and this one's by Holly Jackson. So this is about a girl whose mother went missing when she was younger. And she just wants to move on with her life and not worry about it because it was years ago and it's just too traumatic for her. But they want to do a true crime documentary about the disappearance of her mother. And so stuff gets dredged up that she has to re-go through. And then all of a sudden her mother appears out of nowhere and she's not dead like everybody presumed she was. And so I guess her mother tells the story of why she disappeared, but she's not sure she really believes that. She thinks there's something else going on. So she's trying to discover what really happened to her mother while having all these cameras on her and all these journalists who are, you know, mucking about in her life and in her mother's story. So it sounds like it should be a good time. And then coming out April 4th, we have another YA book. This one's a YA horror. This is by Amy McCaw, and it's called Mina and the Colt. This is the third in a trilogy, so I didn't read the synopsis because I haven't read the second book, so I don't want anything spoiled for myself, so I don't know anything about this book. And even if I did read the synopsis, I probably wouldn't tell you much about it, because what if you haven't read the first two books, you know? So I don't know much about this one, but I love the cover. I think it's really fun. And this has all like the 90s nostalgia feels. It's very Buffy the Vampire Slayer-esque. So it's just a fun time. And then coming out April 9th, we have Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. And this is a science fiction horror about a psychologist named Ophelia who is trying to figure out this disease that's called ERS. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to be the same disease or illness from the first book called Dead Silence. It sounds like it might be, but it could be a new disease that we're not familiar with. I'm not sure on that. But anyways, they go to this abandoned planet to try and discover more about this illness. But the crew that's with her seems more interested in figuring out why this planet is abandoned and why nobody's there. And then their pilot ends up getting murdered, and so they're stuck on this planet. So it sounds like it should be really interesting. I enjoyed Dead Silence, so I have high hopes for this one. And then also coming out to April 9th, we have Night Falls on Predicament Avenue by James Joe Wright. I haven't read anything by this author yet, but I just picked up a few of her titles because they look really fun and interesting. And I discovered she has a new book coming out this year, so I thought I'd share it with you guys and definitely put it on my TBR. So anyways, this is about a girl whose sister witnessed a murder and it made her mute because it was just so traumatizing, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with her. But then while she's trying to figure that out, there's like a man that appears and claims that his wife was like murdered in their house. And this is a dual timeline. So then in the future, there's a woman who turns that house into a bed and breakfast. And then there's a guy named Sebastian that comes to visit, and he's like a historian and a true crime podcaster, and he's trying to figure out the murder that happened in the past, which was this guy's wife that died there. So it sounds a little bit more thrillery than her other books. The other books seem like they have more like ghostly paranormal stuff to them. This one seems more like a straight up thriller, but it still sounds like a fun time and I'm still excited to read it. Then coming out April 16th, we have Oracle by, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Thomas Oldhoyvelt. So this is the guy that also did Hex, and I love that book. It's a witch book, but it takes place in modern times, and I really loved it. And I skipped his next one because it just didn't sound like it was as good as Hex. But then this one sounds interesting. This sounds like there's these two kids that discover this 18th century ship just in the middle of a meadow of flowers or something. And so they, of course, go to investigate and explore the ship because they're kids. Why wouldn't you? So one of them walks into the hatch and goes into the ship and just disappears, never comes out. So then, you know, all these government agencies and stuff are swarming onto the ship, trying to get there before the media frenzy comes to figure out what's going on with the ship. And they call in an occultist to see what's going on. And he thinks like a harbinger of doom or something is descending on the town. So it sounds a little bit wacky, but it sounds really fun too. So I'm looking forward to this one. I'm hoping it's as good as Hex. Then also coming out April 16th, we have You'd Look Better as a Ghost by Joanna Wallace. And this one sounds like it's supposed to be a little bit comedic. I'm hoping it's comedic in the way that Grady Hendrix is comedic, where it's not just completely funny the whole time and kind of ridiculous and silly, you know, I don't want that, but a little bit of humor, dark humor, and then have like some dark elements still within the story is what I'm hoping this is going to be. But this is about a female serial killer, and she is at a bar with her next Mark or whatever, but then she ends up being blackmailed by somebody else, so she's trying to figure out who's blackmailing her and trying to dispatch this other guy at the same time. So it sounds like something that could really, really work for me, or could really just not work at all. So I am hesitantly excited for this one. And then also on April 16th, we have One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. Now, first of all, I love this cover. I just think it's gorgeous, and I'm very excited to read it. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but we all do it, whether you think you do or not. But anyways, I digress. So this one sounds pretty interesting. It's about a girl that has DID, and her life had begun to spiral. She had like a breakdown. And so she's trying to put her life back together and deal with her mental health problems. And she's given the opportunity to have a job as a caretaker for this historic building. I think of like Scotland or England or Ireland, somewhere in the UK. But anyway, so she's there, and then the Conservation Trust shows up randomly and wants to look at the building, but there ends up being like a huge storm and they get trapped there. And then one of the guys that's part of the trust, apparently he was involved in her breakdown that she had previously. And then while they're there during that storm, he turns up dead. So they're trying to figure out, you know, if there's a killer among them and if it's her, because obviously she's the #1 suspect now. So her and her alters have to try and figure out a way to clear their names. So it sounds pretty fun and interesting and entertaining. Then coming out April 23rd, we have A Game of Lies by Claire McIntosh. And this is the same person that wrote The Last Party, I believe it's called. And I didn't read that one. It sounded like okay, but just like a normal thriller. But this second one sounds really fun. And so I'm hoping it's not connected, because I think it is technically a sequel. Although I don't know how. They don't really sound similar. Like the premises don't sound anything alike. So I'm hoping it's just like the same detective or something, you know, how sometimes they have the same detective in the stories, but like the story itself is completely different. That's what I'm hoping this is, because I really want to read the second one. So this has to do with a reality TV show about 7 strangers that get together and they all have these secrets and they're trying to expose each other's secrets on camera. And then you get voted off, you know, for different reasons. But then one of them, I think, ends up dead. So then the detective comes on and she's not sure she can trust anything that she's heard as far as the TV show goes because it's all for drama, and she doesn't know if they're lying just because they're on camera and they're on this reality TV show, and you know they're not always going to tell the truth. So anyways, it sounds fun. I just recently read another story that had to do with the reality TV show, and I really enjoyed it, and so I really have high hopes for this one. It sounds highly entertaining, so I'm excited for it. And then the last book coming out April 23rd is The Darling Girls by Sally Hempworth. This one, I read The Soulmate last year, and I mean, it was fine. I wasn't like obsessed with it, but I didn't hate it either. And that's the first and only book I've read by Sally Hempworth, but I actually got a NetGalley arc of this book, so I will let you guys know in my wrap-up if it's good or not. Although it will be my April wrap-up, just so you know. Okay, also coming out April 23rd is The Redemption of Morgan Bright. This is by Chris, I want to say Panatier. I have no idea how to say that last name. But anyways, this one sounds a lot like The Clinic that just came out not too long ago, where there's this woman whose sister, instead of being at a rehab like in the clinic, she's at an asylum, and she ends up dying on the road leading away from it, like almost like she was trying to escape but then didn't make it. And so years later, after police investigations have turned up nothing, she decides to take on a new identity and go into this asylum as a patient to see if she can discover what happened to her sister. So The Clinic, I didn't really like. I ended up DNFing it. I just wasn't interested. But that one was a thriller, and this one's classified as a horror. And I'm hoping, because The Clinic, I was hoping had lots of atmosphere, and it just didn't. So this one taking place in an asylum instead, and being a horror novel, I'm hoping to get all those creepy atmospheric vibes from it, and I'm hoping I'll connect better to the characters and get what I wanted out of that last book, getting it out of this one, if that makes sense. So I am optimistic that this one could work better for me. Then also coming out April 23rd is The Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. I haven't read anything by this author, but it sounded interesting. It's a little bit vague, the premise, and it's a little bit confusing, but it's about these siblings, and one of them dies. It just says behind closed doors, so I don't know if there's child abuse going on or if there's something supernatural going on, because then some paranormal investigators get involved and try to discover what's happening on the 3rd floor of their house. So it sounds like it should be entertaining. And then the last book coming out on April 23rd is a romance by Emily Henry, and this is called Funny Story. And I love Emily Henry. There's only one book of hers that I didn't like, and that was People We've Met on Vacation, or whatever that title is. But other than that, I really have enjoyed all of her books. So this one is about a woman who was engaged to a man, but then just before they get married, he tells her that he's actually in love with his childhood best friend and he's going to go be with her instead. And so somehow she winds up being roommates with his new girlfriend's ex-fiance. So it's like they were going to get married, and then the other two were going to get married, but then they both broke up, and she ended up being his roommate. And then it sounds like they're going to start like a fake romance online just to kind of stick it to them or something and not feel like they're lonely and pathetic. But anyways, it sounds like it's going to be fun. And like I said, I like Emily Henry. I like her writing style, so I'm excited for this one. Okay, coming out April 30th, we have Midwestern Gothic by Scott Thomas. And I absolutely love Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. And so I'm really excited to get this one. This one is actually 4 novellas. So that makes me a little bit leery, because sometimes I'm just not really a short story collection person. But because these are novellas, so they're a little bit longer, I'm hoping it will work better for me. Because, again, I just really loved his other book that I read, and so I'm hoping this one will give me all the same vibes as that one. And if anything else, I did like his writing style, so there is that. And then also coming out April 30th, we have Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. And I'm discovering as I put this list together that there's actually a lot of books coming out this year that has to do with videotapes and have a lot of covers like this, which is pretty fun and exciting in my opinion. But this one's a thriller, and this is about a group of 3 siblings, and their mother has just recently passed away, so they get together to go through the estate and divvy up the furniture and the items in the house and decide what to keep and what to get away and all of that stuff. So they find some home videos, and I think, well, that'll be fun just to take a nostalgic look down memory lane, you know. So they start watching these home videos and stuff, but then they find a VHS tape that they put in that's not a home video, and that shows their father covered in blood, and then him and their mother make a pact to hide the body. And so they discover that their father has potentially killed someone, and then their mother helped cover it up. So now they want to discover who this person is that their parents have murdered. So that takes care of all of the April new releases. So now we're starting out with the May. And starting out May 7th, we have This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. And this is technically the 3rd in a trilogy, but I don't think they're connected. I think you could read them as a standalone. These ones, I'm not sure if they're adult or YA, to be honest, but this lady or girl, not really sure, she starts dating this guy and they have like a summer fling type thing, but then she doesn't know that apparently it's her best friend's little brother, and then there's like this whole laundry list of reasons why they shouldn't be together type thing. So it sounds like it should be good, but I'm pretty picky when it comes to romance, so we'll see. Okay, then also on May 7th, we have a thriller by Alex Finley called If Something Happens to Me. So this one I already kind of have a problem with, but I still want to check it out. So this is about a man and woman, and apparently he gets beat up one night and his girlfriend gets kidnapped. She gets taken and he never sees her again. So he goes off to law school and lives his life. And then while he's in Paris doing some kind of law thing, his dad calls him and says, hey, they found your girlfriend's car in a lake. So he runs home to see what's going on, if there's more clues to the disappearance of his old girlfriend. And inside the car, there's 2 dead bodies of men he doesn't recognize, but then there's also a note in his girlfriend's handwriting that says, you know, if something happens to me, then blah, 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 blah. My one issue with this is they found the car in a lake, and then they found this note inside, and my first immediate thought was, wouldn't the note be destroyed by the water? So we'll see how they handle that. But anyways, this might be one I get from the library, but I still want to check it out. And then coming out on May 11th is The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. I have not read these books yet. I haven't read the first or second one in this series. So I'm mainly putting this up for those who have, and just to let them be aware that this is coming out. And hopefully, I am planning on reading the first one, The Housemaid, this year for sure. I actually plan on doing a video about it. So if I like it, I will continue the series and I will get to this one. So anyways, this is just for your guys' FYI. Then coming out May 14th, we have She Left by Stacey Gray. This one is a thriller, I believe. It sounds like it could be a slasher, but I don't think it is. I think it's more of a thriller. But anyways, so this is about a group of teenagers that's at a house party, and I guess one of the girls, the main character, she's getting made fun of, or people are making her feel ostracized or something, and so she kind of leaves in a huff and is like, whatever, see you later, you know. So she walks out, and luckily she did, because it ends up being what they refer to as the Memorial Day Massacre, and all of the people at that party end up being murdered. So then 20 years later, she gets invited to another party, and they, you know, of course there's a storm, and they all get trapped there, and then they all start getting picked off one by one, and she thinks that this has something to do with that massacre back at her past. So it sounds really cliche, but to be honest, I don't really mind. I mean, if it's done well, if it's done right, then I'll just eat it up anyways. Kind of like haunted house stories. I mean, they're all pretty cliche, but I love them. So anyways, I'm excited for this. Then also coming out May 14th is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. And I'm so excited for this. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. At first, I thought it was going to be a haunted house book, but when I took another glimpse at the premise, it's really not. but I don't care. I love Christina Henry's writing, and I'm very excited to read this. This is about a single mother who gets a job working for this director of horror movies, and so she gets a job cleaning his house, and he's very private and very, you know, hush hush. He doesn't like to be out in the public eye, even though he's this famous director. And so she kind of felt privileged to be able to step inside his house and to see all the old horror memorabilia and all the things from his films. And she's a huge fan of his, so she's very excited for this job. But then one day as she's cleaning, she hears noises behind a locked door, and she thinks she hears somebody calling out for help. So now she's worried that maybe he's kidnapped someone and is keeping dark secrets in his basement. So this one sounds like it could be a really fun time. Okay, then on May 21st, we have The Main Character by Jocelyn Goldis, and I am such a sucker for this type of story. So this is about a thriller writer, or like a murder mystery writer, but she's kind of famous for the way that she crafts her stories, because she actually hires real people and conducts these interviews and acts out scenes with them, and then she fictionalizes it, and her books are always bestsellers. So this time around, our main character gets the opportunity to play the main character in one of her upcoming books, and she gets hired to go on this newly renovated Orient Express train to Paris. So she's very excited. But then when she gets on the train, she discovers that she knows all the other people that are playing characters in this woman's books, and it's like her ex-fiance and her brother and like somebody else in her life. And so she's kind of like taken aback, because she's like, oh, okay, I thought I was going to be here with strangers and this was going to be fun and exciting, but now I'm here with my ex and with my brother, who, I don't know, maybe she doesn't get along with him. And so this dream, almost vacation, kind of takes a dark turn, but it sounds like it's going to be really fun. I'm a sucker for books about writers. And I know the whole Orient Express, Agatha Christie thing has been done to death, but I still eat it up every time. And then on May 21st, Stephen King is coming out with a new book. This one's actually a collection of short stories, and so it's on my radar, but it's not one that I'll probably run out and buy immediately. I'm just not really into short story collections, although I will probably make an exception for Stephen King because he is very good at short stories. But again, I don't think it's one that I'm going to necessarily like run out the day that it comes out to get it, but I definitely want it on my radar. Also coming out May 21st, Ruth Ware is coming out with a new book called One Perfect Couple. I haven't been interested in the last two releases by this author. They just didn't really sound like they were for me. But this one does. So I'm excited to read another book by Ruth Ware that I might actually enjoy. So again, this has to do with reality TV. I don't know, there's a lot of books this year about reality TV and about old films and stuff, but I don't know, I'm here for it though. So anyways, this lady, she has a boyfriend who she's living with, and he's an actor, and he wants to take part in this reality TV show, and I guess the relationship's kind of deteriorating or something, and so she feels like it's an opportunity to get closer and bond and things, so she reluctantly applies with him to be on this reality TV show that's for couples. And so they make it in, and they get transported to this island in the middle of nowhere with these other couples. I think there's 3 other couples, and apparently the first challenge happens and people are upset and angry about it, so it's, you know, drama unfolds as it should. But then a storm takes place and they lose contact with the crew members, and they have no way off this island, and so they're just stuck there together with these other couples. So it sounds like it's going to be drama filled. It sounds like it's going to be fun, so I'm hoping it doesn't disappoint. Coming out May 21st is The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton, and this one sounds like it might be like a sci-fi horror. This sounds like a dystopian almost, where the world or the country, or I don't know how far reaching it is, but there was a fog or a mist that arose and killed everybody, and so there's the last group of survivors are holed up on a little island off the coast, and so they were able to put up barriers against the fog, and so there's some scientists and then the regular people, and then I don't know how extensive their society is or whatever, but anyway, so one of the scientists ends up getting murdered, and they find him stabbed. But the problem is, whatever his job was on the island, it had to do with the barriers keeping the fog at bay. So now his death has led to the fog being able to leak its way in. And so they have like a certain amount of hours to figure out his death and his murder in order to get those barriers back up and be safe from the fog. So this sounds like it could be really fun. So those are all the books coming out in May. So we're going to be turning our attention to books coming out in June. So coming out June 4th is Two Sides to Every Murder by Danielle Valentine. I read How to Survive Your Murder last year and I absolutely loved it. I read it in October. And so I'm very excited to read another book by Danielle Valentine. And this is very summary, so it comes at an apt time. So this is about a summer camp. So this girl, she was born during like a massacre. They call it a massacre at, I think it's called Camp Lost Lake. I think that's what it's called. So there's this Camp Lost Lake, and she was born during that massacre, and people think that her mother was the one that murdered everyone. So her and her mom have kind of been in hiding. And then she finds out later that the man that she is called father is not her biological father. So now she's got all these questions just as the summer camp is reopening. And so she thinks that this is a prime opportunity to go and discover some answers about her life and about the day that she was born. So I'm so excited for this one. This is one of my most highly anticipated books of this year, and I cannot wait. Then also coming out June 4th, we have another book by Ronald Malfi coming out. This is called Small Town Horror. This is another book that sounds a lot like it, where you have a group of kids coming together in their small town and they have to dredge up old memories about something horrible that happened in their past. It's a pretty vague premise, but that's all I have to say about that. Then on June 11th, we have The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This is a romance novel. So this one sounds very promising. It's about this woman who is a screenwriter, or more like a wannabe screenwriter, I guess. She has written screenplays, but she's not like a known name or anything. So she's trying to get her career going. So then her favorite director / screenwriter needs help with a script or something. And so she gets the opportunity to go work with him, and she's ecstatic. So she gets a ticket to LA for 6 weeks to go be with this man and help him with his screenplay. And the screenplay is for a rom-com. But the problem is, when she meets this guy, you know, she's kind of like, oh, that's why you don't meet your heroes, because he's kind of a jerk. And the screenplay that he wants help on is terrible. And he doesn't actually even care about it. It's like a means to an end. And he doesn't even believe in love or all this stuff. And so she's kind of trying to teach him why rom-coms matter and why we need love stories in our lives and all this stuff. But it sounds like it should be a lot of fun. And then also coming out on June 11th is another romance by Ali Hazelwood. This one's called Not in Love. And this one sounds a little bit like her scientific ones, but only kind of, because it's more like a business thing rather than a scientific thing. So it's like she deals with food science, and she is like the head of a company or something, and he wants to do like a hostile takeover of her company. And so they're kind of in this battle for the food company that she started. I haven't read anything by Ali Hazelwood yet. This one sounds like it could get pretty steamy because they have like an affair and like they're doing their thing, but they only have like a certain amount of time until whoever wins the battle for the companies or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not really into steamy romance. So, and like I said, I haven't read anything by this author. So I have it on my radar, but it's probably not one I'd run out and grab right now. I'll probably read one of her other ones first and see if I even like her writing style. Then also June 11th comes a book called That Night in the Library. It's by Ava something. You could just look at the cover because I'm not going to be able to pronounce that name. I will just butcher it. I have no idea how to say that last name. So anyways, so this is like a literary mystery. So it kind of gives me dark academia vibes. This group of college students are in the rare book section of their college library, and they're performing a ritual that's supposed to help them with their fear of death. And then they get locked into the library and somebody ends up dead, so they think that they're trapped with their killers. So This one sounds really good, but I get a little bit nervous when it says literary mystery. I don't really do well with literary fiction all the time, so I'm excited for this one, but kind of nervous too. Also coming out June 11th is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. And I don't always get on with Paul Tremblay books. I loved A Head Full of Ghosts, but everything else I've read by him I haven't liked. But this one just sounds really good, and I love the cover, so I'm hoping this is going to be a win. This is about a group of indie filmmakers, and they made this horror flick, and it went crazy, and people loved it, and it had a big fan base. And so then 20 years later, they want to do a big reboot of the movie. But most of the cast members that were a part of that movie have passed away. And so the one that remains, he's very eager to do this film, but at the same time, it kind of brings back memories of the first film when apparently a lot of things went wrong and a lot of suspicious and eerie things happened in the background, and there was a part of the film that never made it to where the audience could watch it. So anyways, it sounds fun, it sounds interesting, so I am hopefully gonna like this one. Okay, the last book coming out June 11th is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. This is about a woman who has like a whirlwind romance with a man, and they get married very quickly, and then she notices some blood on his shirt, and she starts digging into the times that he's been out of town for work and noticing that every city that he's been in, there's been missing women, and she starts to suspect that her new husband is a serial killer. Then on June 11th, we have Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I'm a huge Riley Sager fan, so I'm very excited for this one. I'll admit I was a little bit put off when I discovered that the main character is a man. I don't know why. I know a lot of people think that, well, maybe not a lot of people, but I have heard people say that he can't write women, but I disagree. I think he does a fine job writing women characters, and so pretty much all his other books are women characters, and so this one kind of threw me for a loop for a minute, and I was like, really, what? So it'll be interesting to see Riley Sager write a male character since he is male. But anyways, so this is about a little boy, and he has a camp out with his best friend in the backyard. But when he wakes up, his friend is missing, and there's like a knife slash in the back of the tent. So he's pretty sure that he's kidnapped in the middle of the night, hence the title. So he comes back to his hometown like years later and starts picking up clues about his missing friend, and decides that maybe he can actually solve what happened to his best friend. And then also on June 18th, we have The Next Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. This is the sequel to The Last Mrs. Parrish. I have not read that book yet, so I didn't read the synopsis for this because I don't want to be spoiled, but I just wanted to let you guys be aware that there is a sequel if you're a fan of her first book. Then on June 18th, we have another thriller coming out by Lucy Foley called The Midnight Feast. And I'm just going to go ahead and redo the synopsis because it's very short. It says, welcome to the opening weekend of The Manor, a luxury resort built on top of old secrets in an ancient wood. The founder, the husband, the mystery guest, the kitchen help, all have an agenda, all have a past, but not everyone will survive the midnight feast. So, sounds like another thriller that's in a remote locale, you know, and you have people being picked off one by one. But I do love a locked room mystery, so I am excited for this one, and I really like the cover. Then we have coming out again on June 18th is The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. That's the same author that does The Silent Woods. And this is about a woman who something terrible happened in her past with her boyfriend, and she stopped speaking to her best friend, so something's going on there. And then later on, she kind of finds her own life away from all of that in a trailer in the woods of Idaho. But then her old boyfriend ends up calling her and saying, hey, you know, your best friend is missing. We don't know what happened to her. So she reluctantly gets together with him, and they both try and figure out what happened to her best friend. Also coming out June 18th, we have a horror book called How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey. And this sounds like it's going to be like a supernatural slasher. So this is about a man who is very dedicated to filming horror films, and he wants to break out creatively and do more artistic films, but people just want 80s slashers. That's all they want. I think this is actually set in the 80s, which is cool. But yeah, they just want slashers. So they just want more blood. They just want more gore, more guts. And so, you know, give the people what they want. And then we have another POV from a woman who wants to be the final girl in his film. And she thinks she can be the latest Scream Queen, and she's very excited to try out. So while he's filming this film, he discovers this old video camera, and he wants to use this to film his newest movie because I guess it has a lot of history about it in the horror film industry or something like that. But come to find out, there's some kind of curse attached to the camera, and so things start to happen. So sounds like it's going to be a fun time. I wasn't the biggest fan of episode 13, I'll admit, so I'm hoping that this one will work better for me. And then on June 25th, we have another horror book coming out. This one's called Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. And this is about a little girl who has a great life, you know, a great family, but she also has other mommy who talks to her sometimes and always asks her if she can come inside of her heart. And she always denies her, but she's becoming more and more insistent. But then I guess her parents are kind of going through some things, and she's worried that they might get a divorce. And so the family dynamic is also cracking. And so she doesn't want to make things worse for her parents, but, you know, this other mommy is getting pretty persistent. And so things start to go downhill from there. Josh Malerman is kind of a hit or miss author for me, so this sounds really, really good. I love the cover, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a fun time. And that's all the books that I have to share with you. These are all the books coming out in the next 3 months that I'm looking forward to. You've probably heard of most of these, but I'm hoping that there's a few that you haven't heard of that you can add to your TBR. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already if you want to see more videos from me. And please comment below which book you're most looking forward to in the next 3 months. And I'll see you next time. Bye.